What's up, Vetters? Patrick here with Vetted. You are not going to believe the video I have for you today. Eric Burlison said some bonkers things recently in a couple different interviews he did. He basically talked about how he went down to Mexico City to see the mummies because David Grusch, the UFO whistleblower who testified in July 2023 about a UFO alien government cover-up, right? Who is now a sort of an aide working with Eric Burlison in Washington, D.C., recommended to Eric Burlison that he travel down to Mexico to see the mummies because, quote, they resemble things that he had seen in classified briefings. That's right. And it doesn't stop there. There are so many other crazy things to cover. President Trump being briefed on tall whites and Nordic aliens. A lot of stuff to cover, y'all. So let's jump into this. Please hit that like button, Vetters. That really helps out the videos. And of course, if you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button, y'all. I put out new videos every week about the UFO phenomena. And I'm trying to get to 100,000 subscribers before the end of the year. All right, so I've got the clips pulled up here. There's a lot to kind of go over, so I figure we'd do it this way in my investigative mode that I call it here. Whatever. All right, let's this is from UAP James on Twitter. Posted this from a Twitter space, right? It says, new Congressman Burlison says David Grusch told him that President Trump was briefed on alien-human hybrids. Grusch says there are aliens that are crossbreeds living in the world. He said when Trump was briefed, he had this existential briefing that rocked his worldview. What? Let's listen.
He says some of them, that there are aliens that are crossbreeds living in the world. And I asked him, I go, okay, do they know that they're a crossbreed? Or do they, like, how would you know that they are a crossbreed? And he didn't.
That's a great question.
Have an answer for that. Like he didn't know if they knew what, but he said that the briefings he's had talked about them. And he said when Trump was briefed on this topic, because Trump finally had a briefing and he was in the middle of impeachment, like he was in the middle of being impeached. So he's going through that. And then he had like this existential briefing that just kind of rocked his worldview. He joked in the briefing whenever they said that there are these half-breeds. He joked that Adam Schiff must be one of them. And so, yeah, Nifty Schiff is an alien.
Well, we're not here to get political or partisan in any way. All right, that's kind of hilarious. I could think of a lot of other people that might be hybrids in Washington as well. But what I found interesting about that is this part.
And I asked him, I go, okay, do they know that they're a crossbreed? Or do they, like, how would you know that they are a crossbreed? And he didn't have an answer for that. Like he didn't know.
He didn't have an answer for that. He didn't know. You know, when I'm a subject I'm deep on and know a lot about, I've thought about every angle of it. So if someone asks me a question, I may not have an answer to their question, but it's like, oh, well, I don't have your answer, but this is how we've thought about it based on that, because I've thought about that too. You telling me this guy hasn't once thought, how would they know that they're alien hybrid? That discussion hasn't come up. They haven't had that conversation. Is that not a huge red flag? That's a huge red flag. And that's going to fly right over people's heads. They're going to think that's an innocuous thing. Well, he didn't know that. Okay, move on. No, that's a big deal. Again, think about something you know about. You've covered every angle mentally, right? Especially something like this. You wouldn't have thought of that? Someone hasn't asked you that? Again, you may not have the answer. I don't know where they come from, but this is what we've said about. This is what we've thought. This is what, these are the conversations we've had. Because, again, that makes zero sense to me, and that is a huge red flag in my opinion. But let's continue on. There's more about that too, so stay with me. There's more on this story right here later. All right, let's move on to this next one. This is from Red Panda Koala. So Eric Burlison goes on a show called Redacted, and it says right here, the physiology is congruent with what he is seeing in briefings. Representative Burlison says that David Grusch validated some of the Peruvian Nazca mummies. I don't know if he validated it. I wouldn't say that particularly. Nothing against Red Panda. He's allowed to state things however he wants. I personally would not say that David Grusch validated him. Let's listen carefully to exactly what Representative Eric Burlison says here.
At the end of the day, I was there to see that. Also, we had reports that there was mummies that were found in Peru that were alien mummies. And whenever I spoke with David Grusch, who was the whistleblower from the Pentagon that studied this stuff, I was actually probably not going to go because I thought that there's no way that that's real. And he recommended that I do because he said that based on the physiology of what he's seen in some of these mummies, not all of them, some of them are faked, but some of the mummies that exist in Peru, that based on the physiology, they are congruent with what he has seen in briefings in his former role. At the end of the day,
so I don't think he's validating. He's just saying, hey, I've seen things in classified briefings that look like these mummies. Maybe you should go check them out. And he's saying some of them are fake. Which ones? They all look the same. What are we talking about? What about them is congruent with what he's seen in classified briefings? That's what I would have asked Representative Eric Burlison. What about those mummies is congruent with what David Grusch has seen? Because he's saying some of them are fake. If you look at all the mummies, they all look the same. So which one is different? If some of them are fake, but some of them are real, they all look the same. Again, it doesn't make sense, and it's a huge red flag for me. It's very interesting. I don't know what's going on with that. So let me know in the comments what you think. I find that to be just super interesting. And let's be real, David Grusch has never revealed that. This is new information, right? David Grusch has never revealed what the bodies look like that he's seen in classified briefings. In fact, I don't know if he's ever even admitted to seeing bodies. Now, was he shown pictures or was he just described things on paper and then he sees the mummies and go, oh, that looks like what was described to me? Or did he see pictures or video? Or what exactly did he see, right? So I don't know. I'd like to keep pulling the thread on that particular point from David Grusch, right? From that particular point in particular, what about those mummies checks with what he's seen in these classified briefings? What is it exactly? The look, the size, right? Again, they all look the same. So I'm so confused how some of them are real and some of them are fake. And all right, let's continue. There's more. This is an interesting story. So right here, you can see a story that says Trump briefed on Nordic alien hybrids, right? You heard that clip. Now, this says that Congressman Eric Burlison revealed in an X-Space that David Grusch gave the briefing to Trump, right? That was what was being spread yesterday, that David Grusch had briefed President Trump on Nordic alien hybrids, right? But again, more on that. But this story is kind of interesting. This is from 2014, y'all. It says, Iran says tall white space aliens control America. Documents leaked by NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden conclusively proved that the United States has been ruled by a race of tall white space aliens who also assisted the rise of Nazi Germany in the 1930s. Well, that's not good. Right? That's very interesting. All right, let's move on. This is an interesting bit of information from Eric Burlison. This is from an account called Benno. It says, Congress has not seen any evidence of alien life, including in classified briefings, according to Representative Eric Burlison.
Public hearings.
Let's take a listen to that.
From what you have seen and what you have heard, have you come to believe that there is absolutely something there, either of this world or not, that we do not, that we have not been disclosed to about?
I've not been given any kind of secret knowledge in that regard. No, because nothing that you haven't seen in these public hearings. And so to me, I revert to the fact that I'm from the show me state. You're going to have to show me. I don't like, I'm going to continue to invest just like you. I'm going to keep an open mind and I'm going to investigate it, but I'm not going to definitively say, yes, we are not alone. There are aliens. They exist. That's just not. I'm gonna have to see it for myself before I say that. And I think the UAP community likes that about me, or at least that's what they tell me because they know I think what they like is to have like a what do you call it, the placebo of the group, right? Like I'm the one that's the of the people investigating this. I'm the non-believer, and so if I suddenly change my paradigm and I start talking about this, saying that no, I have seen something that tells me that we're not alone, then they can definitively know that that they can trust that. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Thank you. Thank you again. Make sure you guys are all following him on this account and the one up in the title. Do you have any last words about the BBB or anything you want to say to the audience before you take off?
No, I'd say just if it doesn't pass by July 4th, don't like it's probably a good thing.
I don't know what that's about, but anyway, that's kind of interesting. So he thinks what Representative Eric Burlison thinks he brings to the topic is that he's a non-believer, very skeptical, and he's the quote placebo. Basically, if he can be convinced, then more people can be convinced. Right? He's from the Show Me State. Well, that's very interesting, right? Even with everything that's been told to him, he still doesn't believe. He literally gets to have private meetings with David Grusch, and he still doesn't believe because he's seen nothing behind the scenes even, right? That's pretty interesting, right? Wouldn't you think they'd be light years ahead of us of what they're saying? That's what we're being told, right? So what is going on, right? What is going on? They're basically saying the best information has been put forward, and he hasn't seen anything that would convince him there's evidence of alien life. Again, he's just hearing stories, even behind the scenes. How long will that last? How long do you think these Congress people will just keep getting stories, no evidence? Years? I mean, we're working on a couple of years now. Coming up on this summer, it's a couple of years since David Grusch. Literally, in a few days, in 2 weeks, it'll be exactly 2 years, right? In a few days, it'll be July, which is the anniversary of David Grusch testifying 2 years ago. 2 years. Just saying. 2 years. How much longer are we going to go? All right, let's... This is an interesting one. All right. Actually, before we get to this one, that'll be the last one we play. I want to put this out because... so Eric Burlison responded to... the story going around that David Grusch had briefed Trump. Okay, again, that was the story. David Grusch had briefed President Trump, but Representative Eric Burlison is coming out and saying, I didn't say that, right? He's saying, as you can hear in this clip, I didn't say that Grusch briefed Trump. Key distinction. So who was it? Who briefed Trump about Nordic tall whites? And it said when he was getting impeached. So what does that tell you? Right? That tells you that was in his first time in office. So sometime between 2016 and 2020. Now, he said the impeachment, that came later, right? So this is technically before David Grusch even started his investigation, I believe, or maybe around the same time. But my guess, it could even be someone like Stephen Greer, honestly. Eric Davis, I don't know. All right, let's move on.
From what you have seen and what you have heard, have you come to believe?
No. All right, so let's go to this one. This will be the last clip from Red Panda Koala. David Grusch introduced Representative Burlison to someone who talks to aliens or angels. This is a fascinating clip. It's 5 minutes, but let's listen to it. It's worth it, I promise.
I believe that there's so much truth in the Bible. In fact, so I'll tell you guys something that I have. David Grusch put me in contact with an individual who blew my mind. I don't know if I can believe him, but it's an individual who has aliens talk to him. And this individual went from being a Jewish person to being an atheist in his life. When he started talking to what he calls his aliens, or angels, they started talking to him. He has these strange experiences, and then his wife will transcribe what he says, and a lot of it is predictions that come true. And what he told me is
like what? Give an example. Right? Give an example.
Became a Christian. He started believing in Jesus because these things that were talking to him said, yes, Jesus is real. Jesus, I mean, was a real person. He really did perform these miracles, and this guy, and he was the Messiah, and he is part of the divine council with God. And then a guy who didn't even know what the divine council was, the Bible, suddenly was being told through. So anyway, that was an interesting thing. So let me go back to your question.
David Grusch introduced Representative Eric Burlison to someone who talks to aliens/angels. What? What? Why? What is going on? Who is this Chris Bledsoe? It doesn't sound like it from the story of being Jewish to atheist to, Christian. Like, who is he talking about? Right? And why is David Grusch introducing, why aren't you just showing him evidence? Why isn't Grusch showing him evidence? What is this? Remember, guys, this is tax dollars being spent on this, just FYI. Just saying. All right, let's continue.
When you ask, all these ancient, megalithic sites, like Machu Picchu, or the pyramids that are in, whether in the Aztec Empire, the Inca, and then you've got pyramids of Egypt. It's ubiquitous across the world, and some of these sites have got stone structures at their base that there's even modern technology and modern machinery would have a very difficult time putting in place and making it that perfect. It suggests to me that there were ancient civilizations that were extremely advanced. And what happens is and I think Tim Alberino is right. You have cataclysm occur, whether it's a comet that hits, or it's the poles the electromagnetic, magnetic poles.
Noah's.
He stumbles over electromagnetic. Hey, I stumble over words all the time. Look, there's a little bit more to that. They just basically get into ancient civilizations, which I'm totally fascinated by. Again, I'll put links in the description to all of this stuff, so you can go check it out. But yeah, look, there's quite a few red flags there for me. Most of it's just interesting. If I'm being honest, I really don't know what to make of any of it. Right? Grusch is clearly busy behind the scenes with Eric Burlison. And maybe we'll find out a little bit more about this, right? Who is this guy that talks to aliens and angels that he's introducing Eric Burlison to? What about the Nazca Mummies is comparable to what David Grusch has seen in classified briefings, right? So much more here, right? Like, who briefed President Trump on tall Nordic whites? I don't really know. All I know is I'm confused. Par for the course. Anyway, all right, y'all. Let me know what you think. We'll see you on the next video. Remember, every day's a gift, y'all. Peace.